Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Joe on Joe. This is your host, Joe Slepsky, and this is the only podcast where we watch every single episode of G.I. Joe Real American Hero in sequential order and comment on it mystery science theater style. So we are back this week for an episode that starts out pretty frivolous, but ends up being an amazingly awesome, fun episode. I'm a real big fan of this. And I'm so happy to have me joined with me this week is a new fan of the show. He reached out to me, just found the show a few weeks back, and was like, I love it. I need to be on it. That's right. I'm putting words in his mouth. His name is Jesse McCullough, and he's calling from Cochranton, Pennsylvania. Jesse, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, the pleasure is all mine. So let's get this out of the way. You're from Cochranton, and I had trouble pronouncing that. You're about 100.
Well, imagine being a kid trying to learn how to spell it.
If that was a last name, like if that was a last name and you went to school, you would just be the butt of every joke. So I feel like all the other towns are like, yeah, Cochranton. Sure, yeah. That's how you pronounce the name. It's like, yeah, John Boehner. That's how you pronounce it, Boehner, John. Sure, you do.
Yeah, you get to the point where you just abbreviate it with a C.
You're about 100 miles north of Pittsburgh out in Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
And you are a pharmacist for a big corporation.
Yes, sir.
How long?
I started off.
Yeah.
I started off. I've been a pharmacist since 2000. I graduated in 2000 and did the whole deal where I dispensed medicine to people in the community. Just a tremendous opportunity to provide care to people, and then from there went on to see what else I could do to help them out. So I moved into corporate management, where I would say probably my maybe biggest accomplishments are helping pharmacists get trained to provide immunization. So whenever you drive by a pharmacy and you see flu shot available here, there's a decent number of those pharmacists that I had a hand in helping get to that point.
That's amazing. That's really affecting a lot of people. Let's talk about flu shots, because there's a lot of people out there that don't do it, don't know about it, don't understand it. Tell us about what is a flu shot exactly, just to make sure our listeners understand, and like what does it do, and what are the benefits of getting one?
Well, I'll tell you, at the most simple level, what they do with the flu shot is they grow the virus, and they grow enough of it, and then essentially they put it through, lack of a better description, a meat grinder. They just chop it all up and use that, and you inject that into the body, and your body is wise enough to recognize that this isn't normal. And because it's not normal, then your body mounts an immune response. So then that way, if you ever encounter that virus in the wild, your body already knows, hey, this is out there, this is something I don't like, and can mount an immune response so that you don't come down with the full sickness. It's really interesting. A lot of people say that they've had the flu, and a lot of us have had stomach bugs and stuff like that over the years that we will call the flu. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes that is a bit of a misnomer. When you actually have the flu, there's a lot of respiratory distress. It takes all energy. You are sapped, you are wiped out, you hurt all over. I think I can say I maybe have had the flu once in my lifetime, but the fact of the matter very much is I'm a big believer in flu shots and getting those as soon as you can to protect yourself. And sometimes even if it's not just protecting yourself, it's protecting those around you.
Yeah, so, the herd immunity.
Yes, sir. Those of us that are in the Joe community here, many of us have kids. I'd hazard a guess that we all care enough about our kids that we don't want to see them get sick. So something that I would definitely recommend is just getting that flu shot to prevent other people from getting the flu. So
well, now you know. And knowing is half the battle. This is like you just
Absolutely.
Did our own Joe on Joe PSA for getting a flu shot is what you just did.
Very good. Very good. I can come back and do other PSAs if you'll have me.
I would love that. We have some, here's a teaser. We have some PSA centric shows lined up for Joe on Joe. So don't think I've been ignoring them, listeners. I've just been waiting for the right time. So we'll be seeing some PSA information coming very soon. I've not forgotten the wonderful PSAs. Now, Jesse, we can find you on Twitter at JessePharmD. Is that correct?
Yes,
now,
sir.
Do you only tweet about pharmaceutical drugs and or ways to get them, or do you?
No. You'll probably find me more likely tweeting that I'm at the movie theater getting ready to watch Spider-Man or Thor or whatever's coming out. So I don't tweet a whole lot, but that's probably the easiest place to connect with me at this point.
Well, I hope you're as excited about seeing Thor 3 as I am, because I cannot wait for Thor 3. By the time this airs, I think this is airing the week it releases. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I tell you, huge Marvel fan, going back a number of years, and I really like that. I really only have to wait, 2 or 3 months before the next installment of something.
They really got a
amazing.
Great engine going.
Yeah, even the Netflix stuff, and I'm not a hater towards the DC stuff. I prefer the Marvel stuff, but if there's a chance to go, like I really enjoyed Wonder Woman over the summer. I love I'm looking forward to the Justice League. I really like Justice League Unlimited when it was on TV as well.
Oh, it was an amazing show. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to see that stuff do well. I want to see there be good competition there. I want to see just better and better stories come out, because they've got so much stuff they can choose from.
Well, I recently had a secondhand account of the one of the first screenings of Justice League by some of the people that are over there at DC, and they gave it a positive. They said it's, because there's a lot of rumors, a lot of people worried about Justice League and stuff. They said, oh no, they've crafted a fun adventure movie. So that gave me a lot of hope, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah. I hope that it does well. I try not to follow too much of the spoilers there, but I absolutely hope that it does well and that we have more of that stuff to come.
Well, whether it does well or not, I don't think that's going to stop. I think we're going to keep getting more and more. And Wonder Woman was amazing. So you're a comic book fan, and with G.I. Joe, you said you go back to like day one, and you're still reading comics.
Yep.
Like, let's talk about your G.I. Joe fandom. How did it start? Where did it grow to, and where's it at today?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you this. I started off as a number of kids that were probably about our age. Star Wars was a big thing growing up, and I remember walking through.
For sure.
I want to say it was I was walking through a Woolworths. It may have been something else, but just the packaging of those figures in 1982, and seeing just a little bit better articulation than on those Star Wars figures, and I sold out pretty quickly there. It was
take off, Lucas. These guys have swivel arms.
Hey, well, this was even before this. This was just the straight arms.
But they could bend at the elbow.
It was. My first two figures were Short Fuse and Flash. These figures came with tons of accessories, right? They had the helmets, they had the visors, they had all that stuff. And I was into that stuff, and so from day one, and then today I probably only have one straight arm figure. I had Clutch from the Vamp.
Sweet.
The other ones would have broken, and
the pride of Asbury Park.
Yeah. So looking to just replace those ones over the years and stuff like that. But Short Fuse and Flash, I believe, were the first two that I started off with. And then when you layer in the swivel arm battle grip, I mean that's an exponential improvement in the product line. And then they start adding all these colors and stuff like that, and it was just an amazing time. Watching my son grow up. My son's 13. I don't know that I've seen anything that mimics something like that in this day and age. That was just such a neat time.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked on the show before where that's the biggest explosion of a toy line ever. Like even bigger than Star Wars. Like it was everything. That's hard to top. It's hard to fathom of the psyche of getting into just kids, specifically like boys, targeted towards boys consciousness. Even now, Star Wars is big and this is big and that's big, but there's so many things competing for it. There was nothing competing for your eyes back then. It was you're into G.I. Joe or you're not. He-Man eventually, He-Man came along and all that, but it was still just everything was G.I. Joe. So you read the comics as well?
Yeah, I picked up my first issue of G.I. Joe was the introduction to Zartan, which I think was about issue 25, 24, 25-ish.
Well, 20, was it 26 and 27 was the Snake Eyes origin, and yes, was
So,
Zartan right after that? Like,
I think he was right before, but
Okay.
I reserve the right to be wrong. But that was that's where I started, buying the Joe comics, and every month.
oh, and you know what? We're consulting the books here.
I see that. I'm waiting for you to find it here. But Zartan was on
Zartan
he was on the cover of the Water Moccasin
25, issue 25. You're exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, that was it. That's what I remember. A friend of mine coming into school and showing it to me, and I could not get to a newsstand fast enough to find it. Now, I was a Marvel guy before that, but that was about the time I started getting into comics. Was right then, and stayed with G.I. Joe on and off as I continued to grow up. I had a bit of a wandering eye in the toy world. Whatever new and shiny would come out would sometimes catch my attention.
Sure.
So I would transition over to Transformers for a little bit, and then whatever new line was released, obviously that got my attention. But hindsight's being 2020. If I had to do it all over again, it would be all Joe. From the beginning on. if I had to do it over again, there wouldn't be these distractions. I'm looking next to my seat here. I have a couple boxes of robotics. Those caught my eyes at one point.
I remember robotics. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, Superpowers came along at one point. That took my attention from time to time. But if I had to do it over again, would be Joe all the time. Because even going back and just watching these episodes, I think the Joe episodes are just so much better than the Transformer ones.
Yeah.
There's the the logical leaps that happen from here to there. But I think that the Joe episodes just have much better storytelling start to finish than the Transformer ones.
It's a bold statement. I can't say I disagree.
Yeah, and I've given out my Twitter handle, so no telling what type of flames are coming my way. So.
Transformers fans, be kind. Be kind. He says that with love. Yeah, he says that with love.
No disrespect intended by any means. So.
Have you so did you continue to read the comics like all the way through like the Marvel cancellation and then pick them up again with Devil's Due, or?
Well, I stayed in comics up until I was probably about sophomore, junior in high school, and then fell off, which that was pretty close to the end of the Joe run. So I probably had a subscription all the way up to about issue 130, 140.
Yeah.
Whenever I got into, and then I was just out of it for a while. But I remember actually being on an internship and stopping at a Toys R Us on the way back to my dorm, and they had the 15th anniversary figures out, and it sort of sparked that G.I. Joe interest in me again. And went to the comic shop, and I looked in the back issues, and they don't have anything. And I said, well, do you guys have any? And they're like, well, we have this whole warehouse full of comics. And I said, well, this is what I'm interested in. So I'm not going to tell you that I have a complete run of the original Marvels, but it's getting close. I have the last issue, and actually just a couple weeks ago, I picked up issue 150, which was one of the remaining keys that I need. I probably need a couple issues in the single digits and maybe a couple there towards the end, but by and large, I have that. I did buy the Devil's Due stuff. I even bought, some of the stuff when they started renumbering at 155 and a half or whatever.
Yes, yeah, the new, they relaunched it.
But I've fallen off with that. I have a hard time keeping up with all that stuff. I mean, at one point I was buying like 70 books a month, which is just insanity. The only thing I do is just
you're getting like me. What's up?
Yeah. It's just, I bag it because, who knows, there might be a day when I really need to read this.
That's the biggest thing. It's like finding time to read it, and I know it's a comic book and it takes 10-15 minutes. You're like, but multiply that by 70 books a month, and then and then if I'm sitting on, I think I'm sitting on like 6 or 7 long boxes of back issues, not current stuff, but like older stuff that I've bought at conventions and things like that are just waiting to be read, and I want to read them. It's just there's only so much time in the day.
Oh yeah, I'm very much I mean, at one point I was buying everything. I was very much a Marvel zombie. Whenever I was in junior high, I was a dealer in baseball cards, which then became football cards, which then became basketball and hockey cards and stuff like that.
That era, that like early '90s, late '80s, cards were massive. Like everyone was into them. Yeah,
and I used that to fund my comic addiction, and I used that to fund my toy addiction at the time. And it was amazing that I was subscribing. I was using some of these mail order comic services, because where I live is very much the middle of nowhere. There's not much within an hour around me. So if I want to make sure that I get this stuff, I had to do something else. So I was using some mail order services, and even at whatever it was, 50 cents a book, I was probably spending $40-50 a month on comics. It was like, Joe, if you could see over the desk here, I've got, I'm sure you have a lot more comics than you don't.
No, it's we're not measuring. We're not measuring. Yeah, it's an appreciation. I love it.
Like some of these I go and I'm like, what on earth were you thinking? Because like they completely sucked me in. They'd have a crossover. Like I remember, what was it? The DC had crossover event, Millennium
every week. Terrible.
Oh yeah, I bought every crossover for that, and then because I bought every crossover, I might as well just continue, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just these little micro runs of, so was it Checkmate? Maybe was one of the series that came out of Millennium, and I've got 6 or 8 issues of that.
Yeah, there's Checkmate, and there was a Peacemaker. Like, so Checkmate and Suicide Squad, and they were like in their own little corner of the universe, which I actually, those are kind of cool books, but not necessary in almost anyone's collection. Like they're fun to read, but like you're like, oh, okay, this is ever going to have any consequence on anything. Peacemaker was one of the mini series that came out of there. They tied in with Vigilante, I think. Or no,
the New Guardians, maybe.
The New Guardians was terrible. That Millennium crossover was so bad. And like they made Lana Lang an alien agent. Like, really? Because they were like, the mandate someone close to the hero had to be a villain. I'm like, Lana? Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I ever read it, but I was just, I wanted to be prepared, because I'm 100 miles from nowhere, and if I need that, what do I do?
Of course, you never know.
I mean, it was completely logical, Joe. That's what I want to make sure comes across here to the audience.
It's totally logical.
Completely logical.
I refer to that as rainy day buying. I buy something. I go, you know what? One day it's going to be a rainy day, and I'm going to want to read this book. I'm going to want to read my entire ROM collection. That's what's going to happen one day. I'm going to want to read ROM 1, to whatever 85, whatever the final issue is. It's going to be a rainy day someday. That's it.
Yeah, and US 1. I mean, that's another gem that's out there.
Trucker with a CB brain. I mean, come on. And you can't talk about US 1 without bringing up Team America, the original Team America.
Absolutely.
Bunch of flag-waving motorcyclists saving the Marvel Universe one wheel at a time.
So yeah, I thought, here we are. So I bought a lot of DC stuff at the time, and right now I've just tried to focus it back to Marvel, and just pretty much the main characters that are in the movie universe. So and I say that with a caveat. If I'm a Marvel fan, it's a Marvel fan because of the Fantastic Four.
Oh, and I miss them.
So
I miss them so much.
So I have a complete Fantastic Four run back to issue 150.
Great.
With the intent of moving that forward over time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
those early FF, like in the hundreds, like post Kirby, like those are really picking up lately. People are really giving a good appreciation to the stuff. I think Roy Thomas and then Jerry Conway, I think, wrote some of them, which is a joke, and I think it was Conway. But they're really getting a lot of love these days.
Yeah. So I have everything back to 150, and then I have a few sprinkled in here and there before. But when I would have been in elementary school, and my dad actually bought the comic collection of the art teacher in the school, and so like he had all these old ones, and so I remember being first, second grade, looking through all these things. Now they were all, my dad just turned around and sold them to somebody else, but it was really a neat neat thing because the Kirby art through all that stuff just jumped off the page, just the same way that the Joe art, jumped off the packaging. It just grabbed you.
The packaging on the Joe art was just so. That was I don't know what percentage of its success, but that packaging was absolutely vital to the success of G.I. Joe. The style, the design, the like that kind of 8-bit look, when even though they weren't going for any, I mean, it wasn't retro, it was, just that's the look they went with it. The explosion behind all the characters, just gorgeous. And then the decision to go with like these lush painted looks, to all the vehicles, instead of, like just standard photos or something, however you want to do it. Love it. Love looking at the artwork of the original packaging.
Yeah, it all had such urgency to it. It's like, I got to get this because these people are going somewhere. There's an emergency. There is something, and I got to be in the middle of it.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss if we can't go any further on this part of the conversation without pointing out there is a gentleman whose name escapes me, but he runs a Kickstarter, and he does books called The Art of G.I. Joe. And are you familiar with this? Have you seen this?
I don't know that I have.
Check it out. Google it. He's kickstarted each volume so far. There's 4. I've gotten all 4. And he goes like run by run. So I think now he's up to like the 4th volume takes us to like 1989, I think. And he literally collects in a really nicely laid out book every piece of artwork that came out. So it's like not like individual pages of books and stuff, but the covers for the books, for the like the secondary books, not the comics, all the packaging of the toys, and it's just lush and gorgeous. And I apologize for forgetting his name, but do a Google search or Kickstarter search. It's called The Art of G.I. Joe, and it just gorgeous. I think he's getting ready to do his 5th volume sometime next year. All
right, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. But today we're going to take a look at an awesome episode of G.I. Joe. It's called Joe's Night Out. And it's like I said, it starts a little frivolous. Joe's go to a nightclub, and Serpentor is going to attack this nightclub, and my brain was going, oh, okay, this is just going to be whatever episode, and it turns awesome. I don't know if you're a fan of this one, but I had a hard time remembering it in the first place. I don't know that I saw this one before, but I've watched it about 3 or 4 times since you and I connected, because I wanted to. You should see it. I have a whole list of notes here that I wanted to point out. Great, but, more than I do.
That's because I'm a pharmacist and I'm completely obsessive compulsive.
So they're notes, and no one can read them.
Yeah, that's probably fair. That's probably, and it's written in code too.
Yeah, right.
So I didn't really remember the episode, but I was like, Cobra has this plan where they develop this nightclub. They build this skyscraper of a nightclub, and it's all just to somehow blackmail G.I. Joe. So I struggled a little bit finding where their real evil was in starting this, because it seemed a bit of a stretch, but once it takes off, it was really a neat episode at that point.
Yeah, there's for sure a logic hurdle that you do have to get over. Like, oh, okay, it's a little contrived, but the execution of it is amazingly fun. The characterization there's a lot to like in this episode. So yeah. I think we're going to get ready and get into it. As long as you're out there, if you're on the internet, you can find me at Joe on Joe Pod. That's on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com, just like our friend Jesse McCullough did, and you too can be on the episode. We are getting ready to start the DIC episodes. So if you really want to watch some stinkers, come join me. We'll have a blast watching. And if you yourself don't have the DIC episodes, because actually I think I'm going to run into that a lot, where a lot of people don't have access to them or you've never seen them, don't worry about it. Just like Jesse, I make sure you're all set up and ready to go, so you don't have to go out and do any legwork yourself. We take care of you if you want to be a guest on the show. So Jesse, are you ready to watch some G.I. Joe?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Okay, my friend, let's do this. I always love the opening.
Yeah, this opening was really cool, and as I'm watching it, this is what sticks out to me now. I don't know that I was as big a fan of Sarge until I started listening to you, but right here in the opening, not only is Sarge awesome, but he's also ambidextrous because he jumps off and he uses his left hand to knock Monkey Wrench out right there in the opening.
It's a good point. I've never noticed that. And the eye of a pharmacist has to catch every detail, who has to have a watchful eye over the health of his patients.
Yeah. So
you catch the ambidextrous stuff. Yeah. I've always loved. Well, one, I love Alpine and Bazooka, but I've always loved that Bazooka just fires a bazooka at such close range, like always. He's always within 10 feet of his target.
Yeah, he's how clumsy, but they put him in all these situations where that's necessary for success.
Yeah, so. And I know this, like second season they elevated these two, which I love. I love Leatherneck and Wetsuit, but like they took over the role of Alpine and Bazooka, and I always regret that we lost Alpine and Bazooka in order to elevate Wetsuit and Leatherneck.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's an excellent observation, because you're right. Those two do play well off each other. There are episodes where actually all four of them are in there together. Are there?
There's like one. I mean, you really don't get Alpine or Bazooka. You really just don't get them in the second season. They're really not in it. So we start the show. It was written by David Schwartz, and we got Mainframe and a scientist talking about like a new fuel additive or process that he has on engines, and it's to address the fuel, like the fuel crisis, basically to make their planes run on, super efficient. Except the engine modification doesn't work.
It's terrible how that happens, isn't it? I mean, that's a real plot driver right there.
Okay, and you know what, Mainframe? You don't have to mention The Big Bang Theory. All right, you're rubbing salt into a terrible, terrible TV show wound. But so we have a project that just doesn't work very well. That's exciting. Now we cut to one of the weirder parts of almost any episode. It's just a date night. Like,
it's normal, and it gets more normal here when actually they show up.
Yeah, they're so excited about partying. Like, this is like a lost scene from Animal House. Like, hey guys, we're getting the girls in Delta houses going to party.
Yeah, they can't wait to have a night off of base. And what do? They get off of base and they're all completely in their fatigues.
Totally in their fatigues on the sled cycles. Leatherneck is with, quote, the ugly girl. Like,
yeah. I mean, like, we knew that Wetsuit didn't get along well with Leatherneck, but apparently Dial Tone doesn't have any love for Leatherneck either.
And, like, all right. So, again, these are the silly hurdles that we need to get over before the top of the show, because this really does kick into a fun episode. One, let's not go any further. We're listening to The Cobra That Got Away. That was by Satin.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's by Satin from the third miniseries. When
I wondered about that.
It's the song that she was singing for in the club where Snake Eyes and Shipwreck ended up having to dress as women to escape. Cobra That Got Away is the song. So I love that song.
Yeah, I had written a note here about the music because I didn't recognize it, and I wondered if it was maybe taken from another Marvel property like Gem or something at the point.
No, it's from a Joe episode from Satin.
Nice, very nice.
So the point I want to make is Shipwreck, Lifeline, Leatherneck. Okay, so he's in his fatigues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dial Tone, he's in his what he would call his fatigues, right?
Right.
Oh, there's a nice shot of Mutton Junkyard. And real quick, that Space Needle going up into space, that looks like Cobra Law technology.
It does.
It really looks like Cobra Law technology, whether they meant it or not. That is, in my headcanon, says that's Serpentor using Cobra Law technology. 100%.
Yeah, it was that had to be something that Dr. Mindbender had genetically implanted in his head whenever he got this whole idea.
Right. So back to what they're wearing. They're in fatigues, and Wetsuit. Yes, it's his uniform, but it's a literal wetsuit.
Exactly.
It's a
wetsuit. He has a knife.
Yeah, it's a wetsuit.
He has a knife right there in his boot or whatever.
Yeah, a wetsuit. He's wearing a wetsuit at a club. Like, guys walk into club. people go out in their army fatigue. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, you might see him at a restaurant somewhere.
Right.
You know,
100%. Which is fine. He's wearing a wetsuit. It's a bit much.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
All that silliness though is all just preamble for this greatness. So Serpentor basically says they're all going to die unless you give me the scientists, because we want that fuel engine treatment. So it just turns into a hostage situation in space.
It's a hostage situation that it appears that they just tried to manufacture, right? Because the plot line that they have given is that, you know, the staff there, this is their first day on the job.
Yes.
So somehow this skyscraper, the sky striker, something else. The skyscraper was built, and they hired some people to come in, and it was apparently just to lure enough people in this to create a hostage situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the level of evil we're working with.
It's devious. Yeah, I don't think they planned to have G.I. Joes there, but
yeah,
luckily
that's an accident.
Luckily, but, Delta House had a night out planned.
Exactly, and you know, the one thing I thought was neat just in this part is, and this is just the level of specialists that we have here. They're floating around in space in dial tone. All he has to do is get to the video screen, and he has a screwdriver, and he can connect with mainframe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is why these guys are the best of the best.
Totally,
it's that they can do these things, and that's what really stuck out to me.
So true. So Serpentor is making his ultimatum. He gives him like a 5-second ultimatum either too. Like that's so not fair for the experience of the show. Like usually, you know, you'd be like, all right, I'll give you an hour to kind of figure it out. It's like, nah, you get 5 seconds. That's it. That's just how evil he is. He's not even giving you time to think about it. He is really pushing his agenda here. Mm-hmm. Serpentor's really just evil. He's just a nasty dude. So did you have a terror drone or like play sets? Like what was your toy selection like?
Well, I'll tell you, since my toy selection as a kid, I bounced around from all different types of product lines there. The big thing that I had for Joe's as a kid would have been the G.I. Joe headquarters.
Oh yeah.
In later years now, since I've become an adult collector, I haven't been able to acquire a flag.
You did?
But I did.
Awesome.
That was a much better idea than it was in execution. because I remember saying to my wife, "Dear, I'm going to bid on this aircraft carrier on eBay," and she just rolled her eyes like, "Yeah, whatever." And it turns out that I won. And I remember being home the day that it was delivered, and it came in the box. I mean, it's the size of a door. And I took it out, and I think it took me 2 or 3 days to put it all together.
Oh, and is it together right now?
Yeah, it's behind.
It's amazing. Well, we're going to commercial. Today's Filecard features on the G.I. Joe Green Beret, codenamed Falcon. File name is Vincent R. Falcone. His primary military specialty is the infantry, and his secondary military specialty is medic. His birthplace is Fayetteville, North Carolina. Lieutenant Falcon is a second-generation Green Beret, his father having served with the 10th Special Forces Group Airborne from its very beginnings at Fort Bragg's Smoke Bomb Hill. Falcon was cross-trained in demolitions and served briefly with the 5th SFGA Blue Light Counter-Terrorist Unit as an A-Team XO. He is proficient in Spanish, French, Arabic, and Swahili, and a qualified expert with most NATO and Warsaw Pact small arms. Quote, Green Berets are specialists in training and leading native insurgents. Native insurgents are usually primitive tribal people who respond to 2 types of leadership. You can bully and overwhelm them with superior firepower and technology, or you can bite the head off a snake, chug-a-lug the local beverage, and yell, "Follow me!" Falcon is a snake biter if I ever saw one. Lieutenant Falcon is an interesting case because his figure came out and he was great. He's a Green Beret. I believe he was the first Joe to be labeled a Green Beret. He had an awesome look in a mostly full-on green camo suit, but his backpack was really neat and unique. It had an antenna that was purposely bent at the top, and there was space for a knife to be slid into the side of the backpack. And I always love accessories that fit onto other accessories. That was really cool. But then you get the movie that's on its way, and the movie shows up, and you're like, oh my gosh, Lieutenant Falcon, he's being played by none other than Don Johnson, Don Miami Vice Johnson? I'm in. Then
then you watch the movie and you learn, wait a minute, Falcon, he's not just a Green Beret, he's also Duke's brother? What? Like, your mind was blown. Everything was crazy. Now, reading the Filecard as he originally came out, it's fairly clear that he wasn't meant to be Duke's brother. But I love that they added that for the movie. It added a nice generational sense to the figures. Falcon was awesome. He was one of the mid-era guys that absolutely could have fit in the first 3 series. Like, you could have done a Lieutenant Falcon in one of those early waves of the figures, and he would have fit in very nicely. And so, Vincent R. Falcone, Lieutenant Falcon, we salute you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
And we're back, floating in space. So you have a flag set up right now.
I do. It's now since then I've also with the modern figures and stuff like that, I've been able to acquire a couple Sky Strikers. Now I can say Sky Striker.
There you go.
When the modern ones came out for, I guess it was the 35th anniversary or whatever, 25th anniversary. I got a couple of those, and even right when I got out of school, I acquired some collections at that point from probably folks that were a little younger than me that were into Joes after me. So I got some of the later stuff from them. So the early '90s and stuff like that, where I wasn't really engaged with the product. So I have like the more modern G.I. Joe headquarters and some things like that. But,
cool.
I would like to get a Terradrome, and there's a chance that my brother will listen to this podcast and he'll be ranting if I don't mention this. There was one time I made him a bet when we were playing the original Nintendo Double Dribble that he could not put up 50 points and a half, and I bet him a Defiant that he couldn't do it. And it got down, and I don't know, he pulled some miracle out. I think put up 51 points in the first half or whatever. And so I still owe him a Defiant.
That's amazing. Which they could have used in this episode to get into space.
They could, but I think this episode actually predates the Defiant.
It does. It totally does. It does by a couple of years. Absolutely does.
Yeah. Because at the time I made that bet, the local toy store was actually, I don't know if they were doing some remodel, but they had a Defiant, and it was on sale or clearance for $30. And I thought, I just got to go get it.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. Now the other part of it is that I somehow would have had to convince a parental unit that I could spend this $30 and we could somehow fit this monstrosity into the vehicle.
Well, back to the show. The Joes these 3 are awesome. So they rigged up an airlock so they could actually open the door and access outside without killing everyone inside. And they made a customized spacesuit for Wetsuit to go out because there's explosives that are rigged on the outside. So Wetsuit's going out to deactivate them. And he's got this homemade spacesuit, and in order to propel himself around the exterior, he's using soda cans, which is really cool. Like, this is all very cool, like space, like pseudoscience, like they need the airlock. He needs to be fully sealed. He needs propulsion. Like this is the movie Gravity. This is the G.I. Joe version of Gravity.
I thought a little bit of Apollo 13. All right, these are the supplies that they have on board, and what can they do with it?
And even better, and even more apt, you're absolutely right. This is Apollo 13 for G.I. Joe. And I love that with the character dynamics of like Leatherneck and Wetsuit. We always talk how they love to hate each other, yell at each other and all that stuff, odd couple style. And Leatherneck is so staunch and believing in his buddy in this episode. It's really solid.
Yeah, this was a really neat thing, just to see how they interact through all of this stuff, and how they deep down inside they care for each other. They're brothers in arms.
Yeah, it's really cool. So speaking of brothers in arms, this is a terrible transition, but I'm going to say it. Speaking of brothers in arms, you helped all your brothers around the country. Terrible transition once again. And as a pharmacist, you spoke at Congress recently.
Well, yeah, it was about a couple of years ago. It was actually on Back to the Future Day when I was asked to testify in congressional committee around what pharmacists can do for the healthcare system. And most specifically, it was within the Medicare space. But that was a real neat experience. Just to see, you don't know a whole lot about me yet here, or the folks on there don't know a whole lot about me. But I'm I'm a farm guy from a small town in western Pennsylvania, and just having the opportunity, the privilege to go do that was really, really good.
Hold that thought. We're going into commercial. I'll be right back.
Hey, Joe and Joe listeners, you love comic books. You know that I love comic books. If you listen to the 30 seconds of this show, I'll be talking about comics. Well, I've got a massive comic book collection that I'm actually taking the moment to pare down a little bit. I've got a whole lot of items, mostly comic books, up for sale on eBay, and I would love for you to have a crack at them. So go to eBay and do a search for the user Malone2814. That's MALONE 2814. That's going to show you all the items that I have up on eBay. And if you find something that you like, check it out. There's new stuff, there's old stuff, there's hard to find stuff. And listen, when you're checking out, if you send me a note, tell me you're a Joe and Joe listener, guess what you're going to get? Guaranteed free shipping. Boom. That just happened. So head over to eBay today and do a search for user Malone2814. Thanks so much for listening.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
My timing for commercials is way off in this episode, so I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. But so you're a farm guy. And you went in front of Congress. So what congressional panel did you who did you sit in front of?
It was the Energy and Finance Committee. Do
you remember who chaired it?
Truthfully, no. I should have done a much better job preparing for this today, Joe.
You didn't know I was going to grill you on. I'm just fascinated by it. Was it did it air on C-SPAN kind of thing?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It did?
I mean, you can probably Google me and find it on YouTube or wherever. I'm sure that it's archived.
Awesome.
My name is in the, I guess, the congressional record with, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and some of these other folks, which is sort of a neat thing.
And what were you advocating for?
Well, the real thing is that I don't think that anybody is unaware of, the financial issues that government has, especially in the Medicare space, that, there's all this care that is expected, and they're tough on funds here. And so really it was to come in in 2006 when the Medicare Modernization Act was enacted. It was signed in 2003, but it was enacted in 2006. And Medicare recipients were able to get prescription drugs for the first time through Medicare. Mm-hmm. So Medicare had some different things that they put in place at that point, because ultimately they do want to get a good value for the dollar that they spend. I don't know that we necessarily want to go political here, and if we did, we could probably make a lot of jokes. But the fact of the matter is that if you spend money, you want to get value from it.
Sure.
The thing that I was promoting is that pharmacists can do a lot, and beyond just dispensing medications. It was to make sure that medications are appropriate, to make sure that they're effective. If you were to ask me what's the definition of a pharmacist, I would say the definition of a pharmacist is someone who monitors the medication safety and efficacy for their patients.
Fascinating.
That would be that part of it. So I was part of the panel. I believe there were 3 other gentlemen on the panel, and we each had a few minutes. And we were able to give an opening statement, and then whenever it was done, it went to Q&A. And I've had the privilege of speaking at a couple of conferences over the years professionally, but this was really a unique experience because now you have, state representatives that are going to ask a question. And the first question goes to Mr. McCullough. And I was, oh my goodness. Can't you ask somebody else first? But it was really neat just to be able to describe some of the things that our pharmacists have done to really have an impact on patients' health. And that's what we're there for. We're there to provide care for people. We're there to to help them navigate through some of the challenges that come along over time as we age.
That's great. And did you find were there any meaningful changes, or were you happy with the results of, or have we not seen them yet?
I think that's still in progress here. Things don't always move that fast in Washington, D.C. So even with the original legislation, I mean, Medicare Modernization Act was signed in 2003. It was put into action in 2006.
Yeah.
So that was a couple of years there. So this was, will be 2 years. It'll be 2 years ago here. Well, maybe just it was last week, whenever Back to the Future Day it was just 2 years ago. So, those things will come and go. But I absolutely believe that you have a workforce of pharmacists out there that are capable of contributing a lot more than I think what a lot of people realize to better health. And if we can streamline that and we can integrate that, there's an awful lot of cool things that could come from that.
That's really great. And you're being a real American hero for real, because you're helping thousands and thousands of Americans with their health that have never met you, will never hear your name, will never know who you are, and you're helping to influence and make America healthier. So that's really great. Thank you very much for your interest and passion in this field. It's amazing.
Thank you for noticing that, because I don't know that I always notice it myself, but I appreciate the kind words for sure.
You got it. Well, back to the show real quick. The guys, they figured it out, and they got they figured out how to not only disarm the explosives, but also how to get the spaceship / nightclub, which how often do you get a chance to say that? Back in orbit. And now we're in a really cool dogfight. We got Slipstream making a nice starring appearance. We got Firebats versus Conquest X-30s. It was some really cool animation. And this is just the some good requisite action adventure stuff. So, Jesse, if you could be a member of the Joe team or Cobra team, Joe or Cobra, which would you be, and what would your specialty be?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've been thinking long and hard about that, and I don't know that I have a good answer for it. But this was a group that came out a little after my time of primary interest. But I would probably have to be part of the drug elimination force.
Nice.
is where I found myself. And really, with a big part of what I do right now, there's a lot of it that's training and education internally. Where I work now, I've somehow been able to earn the nickname of the Professor. So I might I might suggest that my code name would be the Professor, and I would be either in recruiting. It would be some behind the scenes.
And you'd be a Joe
action.
You be Joe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In his impatience to get my
The Professor. Now, can I recommend can I offer an alternative name, because I thought of one as we were talking, and I kind of love it.
Absolutely.
So I love that you're on the drug elimination team. That's awesome. Your main villain would be the head man.
Yes, sir.
Of course. And can I offer your name being Pharma Joe? Okay. Like you're the opposite of the Pharma Bro. Like,
okay.
Like you're the opposite of the worst guy in pharmaceuticals right now. You're the Pharma Joe.
All right.
It's your call. It's your call. I won't be offended if you choose to stay with the Professor, but I kind of love Pharma Joe.
Let me dwell on that a little bit, but I would not have come up with that in a long, long time. So.
Wow. They are drawing Leatherneck's lady with the most hideous face I've ever seen on a cartoon.
That was absolutely meant
too bad we have to share your discovery
to show that Leatherneck draws the short straw.
Yeah. But you know what though? She could be a lovely woman. Let's not judge her, just because she has gigantic rabbit-like buck teeth and a huge nose. Let's just, let's not judge her for that. And this is great. We see that basically the doctor did give Cobra the plans, but as we saw in the beginning, his methods weren't working. So everything's going to explode on Cobra's, when Cobra uses these new designs. So that's really cool. It's like the Joes pulled one over on him. This episode does carry over the really cool second season, late second season tradition of Cobra kind of doing well, with just a little bit, something. Cobra's not terribly defeated in this episode. They had a cool plan, hold people for hostages. And it ends with a very, very angry Serpentor.
Yeah, well, I think it's all building up obviously you're building and moving towards the movie here in a little bit, but you wanted to make sure that you have a stronger villain.
Yeah.
They're really promoting Serpentor here as a very strong, evil villain that you need to be very, very cautious of.
Completely that. Yeah, completely that. And how often, I can't really think of many. So this episode ends with Cobra losing, yes, but Serpentor is defiant. Like, he's like, this like, man, like they're like, he's angry. Usually, like when Cobra loses, pretty much all 90 previous episodes, they're in retreat. Like they're squabbling amongst each other. They're Cobra Commander's like, we should have done this. No, this ends on a menacing tone.
Yeah, his resolve is getting stronger here for Cobra victory. That's what you see here, and it's just like we were talking comics. It's just like, I don't know, a Doctor Doom or whoever. It's he's getting more and more mad. He's going to take it to another level at the next point. That's what we see.
I totally agree. Well, this was fun. One, it was really fun working with you, Jesse. And this was a great episode. How did you enjoy it?
Hey, you know what? I can't thank you enough for this, Joe. You made this whole process very painless. I was a little nervous about this. I have Post-it notes all over the place here, and notes in case things got awkward, and it didn't. And so I want to thank you for that. I appreciate what you're doing for the fan community here. I appreciate you having me on. If it works out and you can have me back, I would be more than happy to come back at some point.
Do you have? Are you familiar with the DIC ones?
Do you have those DVDs? Yes.
Okay, well, if you know a favorite episode, because I've watched them, but I really don't know them that well. So if you have a favorite episode, give me a shout. We'll have you back on.
Yeah, I would tell you this. I remember when that whole changed, because at that point, G.I. Joe was on morning TV for me, but I'm trying to remember how it went. I was trying to watch G.I. Joe and the Flintstones, but with the VCRs, you had to record a 2-hour block.
Yeah.
And so I would get G.I. Joe or Flintstones or whatever it was, and then My Little Pony, and then Jem, and then Flintstones or G.I. Joe or whatever. So I had these different scenarios set up, and I remember taping it, and then all of a sudden the movie came on, and because I didn't realize that the movie had come out.
Well, yeah, and, it was DVD, video release only.
Right. So now that I start watching one morning, there's a new opening, and an incredible opening, and really like that. And then a little while later, when they came out with that Operation Dragonfire, I actually remember being relatively encouraged with the product. Now, granted, the voices were a little bit different.
Yeah, Dragonfire's pretty good. Dragonfire's not bad, but it goes south quickly.
Oh yeah, I don't know that I have seen Operation Dragonfire since maybe 1990 or whenever it was that it came out.
Yeah.
So that would be one, but if again, I'm sure we could have fun with any episode that we find out
absolutely.
there.
Absolutely, I'm really looking forward to it. So final verdict: are we going with the Professor or are we going with Pharma Joe?
You know what? I'll go with Pharma Joe. I'll go with Pharma Joe. Thank you, brother.
It's so great. Well, Pharma Joe, thank you for being on my show. I love it so much, Jesse. Really nice to meet you. We've made a friend today here on Joe, and listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you're still listening, please go out and rate me and rate me on iTunes. It always helps grow the show, get more ears on it. So, Pharma Joe, Jesse McCullough, thank you. Listeners, thank you. And now you, Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.